Hello and
Good
welcome
morning,
to
everyone. I'll take it, I guess. Good
Hey.
morning, everyone. Eric Bjorndorf here, CEO of Evernet Consulting. You're watching Finance and Technology Insights. I'm with my co-host, Brian Williams.
Good morning, Brian Williams, Northshire Consulting. So what's going on?
Not a whole heck of a lot. The news cycle seems a little quiet. On the family front, home front, the girls just started a really cool day camp program that we were fighting to get into, and
Nice.
yeah, they started that yesterday, and it was cool. The camp actually runs a bus, so it's kind of nice.
Yeah, I saw that you had posted that to Facebook, I think it was, and I saw the picture. So yeah, that's super nice. The picture.
Yeah, I mean, we're the kind of family that, like, we do sports, we do camps and things like that, but it's not unheard of for the girls to burn a week in the summer, floating around the house. You know what I mean?
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I mean, I grew up like unstructured summers, but it's my wife's a little more casual than I am, but I'd rather keep them kind of focused with a week here, a week there in the summer's okay, but I prefer to keep them kind of busy. What about you?
Yeah, we've so Luke's going to continue to go to his preschool all summer, or at least 4 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, as stuff pops up. So that'll keep him pretty active all summer. He started tennis, so he started that last Tuesday, and that's on. Yeah, so that's every Tuesday, and he's still doing karate on Mondays and Wednesdays. So
By the time
that,
he's 20, his rotator cuffs will just be completely shot.
Yeah, I know. But the tennis, I mean, it's again, it's super young kids. They're just running around doing some stuff. They just so that was pretty good. He enjoyed that. Just kind of a town rec type of thing. And
what is your wife's name? Is Lauren?
Lauren. Yeah.
What does Lauren do during the summer when she's not running a classroom?
Well, she's doing pretty much her travel stuff almost full time during the summer. So she does
she's a teacher,
travel
right?
agency. Yeah, so she does travel, a lot of cruise stuff, a lot of Disney stuff. Those are probably her two main focuses. But anywhere she's been or anything that she's done, she leverages that to kind of help people out. So
is she dragging you to Alaska or Orlando this summer?
Well, so my mother-in-law, her mother is in Florida. She's in the Villages, which is maybe 40 minutes away from Disney. So I'm sure we'll be down there at some point. And I don't mind going down there. I don't need to go to Disney every day. So I'll just go maybe once or something, but it's not really my thing. But if they want to stand in line for an hour in 90-degree heat, so be it.
Yeah.
I mean, the way, luckily the way business is now, I can, pretty much bring whatever I need down there and just have my regular day down there. So no issues there. Scoot out for the golf cart for a little bit for a ride if I need to, but
yeah, I've got two side rants. So the Villages and Disney. Where do you want to start? The Villages. So okay. I saw a Netflix documentary on the Villages. Is that correct?
Yes. Was it Netflix or was it just something? Maybe it was something different on YouTube. But yeah, I keep wanting to watch that. We haven't got to it yet.
So I guess it's a pretty wild time down there, or it can be, huh?
Can be, yeah.
Have you witnessed any octogenarian orgies or anything? Or
no, not something I mean, there's going to be that kind of stuff anywhere, I guess you go. But when you get that many, people there with pretty much wide open days, and it's only 50 plus. It's not like it's some kind of, it's a retirement community, yes, and there's also a rule where they have to have a certain percentage of houses open to the general population, I guess you'd say. So, which makes sense because you do have, businesses, and it's a city. I mean, it is, population's like 65, 70,000. So that's like West Hartford size, probably, right?
That's amazing.
So obviously you need people to work at things. If everybody's retired, that doesn't make for a very healthy work environment. So
Right.
no, I haven't. But yeah, there is some pretty wild stuff, and it is like the STD capital of the country or something like that.
Is
So
that rumored though, or is that
I think
confirmed?
it is official. Yeah, we can probably look it up, but um,
That's so
so
funny.
yeah,
So
it's
how many times have you gone down there? Quite a bit.
yeah. I mean, at least once a year for the last 6 or 7 years, I guess. So
And have you done like some good touring on the golf carts around the community?
yeah, I mean, just golf carts. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a fun thing to do, but it's also, in a lot of instances, the most efficient means
Yeah.
of transportation. So, um, the way it's a planned community, obviously, and everything is, it's a lot of, even if you're in the car, it's a lot of like traffic circles, and then it's also a lot of gates and stuff. So, um, and in a lot of places, your max speed, even driving, is 30 miles an hour. That's what the speed limit is. So if you're in a golf cart, you're scooting around at 15, 20 maybe, plus
Hmm.
without some of the restrictions, because they've got their own lane, they've got tunnels, they've got all this sort of stuff. So if
Hmm.
you're, running to the grocery store for something, that is, even going out to eat or something, I mean, that's still the most effective place. And
Yeah.
so
I, I
yes.
I tried to get a groundswell movement for golf cart support here in West Hartford, but I don't know. The community didn't seem to be responsive to that.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense, and even rural places will do it a lot. They'll have them for just kind of going around their property and stuff. But
The Connecticut Shore has a number of towns that does golf carts, that
yeah,
supports golf carts. I did some research on it. So the each city or town has what's called a local traffic authority, and that is an individual that is given that responsibility. In our town, it's sometimes, in some towns it's the sheriff or the chief of police. Some towns
okay.
it's the town manager. Some towns it's the mayor. In our town, it's the town manager. I sent him an email and I was like, what do you think about golf carts in town? And he's like, no, don't even. I was like, all right, I'll just keep firing up my V8 gas guzzler to go 300 feet down the street to Stop and Shop rather than an electric golf cart.
Yeah. What about a Segway?
Well, I mean, it's just the form factor. You know what I mean? Sometimes, like, if, you don't always want to be on your feet, right? I mean,
Mhm.
sometimes you're carrying bags or something. So a golf cart, is kind of like the perfect form factor for grocery shopping.
What kind of weight would your mower support if you wanted to use it as a skateboard?
Yeah, I thought about the mower, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
it's like a 20 horse gas powered motor. It's loud and obnoxious. It's really not the
But
direction
no,
I
I
want.
bet your robot mower, if you
Oh, the
wanted to.
mower. Oh, the robot mower. Yeah, yeah. The other thing too is the kids' elementary school and junior highs are like right here, a couple blocks,
Mhm.
and it would just be funny. My sister down in Florida, she's in Gainesville, and they're, she says they've got half the school shows up in golf carts or
Mm.
quads to school. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Yeah. My high school, a lot of people take snowmobiles in the winter. A lot of
Y-
the kids. Yeah. And
Yeah,
probably even some of the teachers and stuff too.
yeah, I like that. The multimodal, this town is, and a lot of towns are just so homogenous with cars. It's just cars everything. Make cars everything. They want to drive their cars up to the bar stool, or the rest,
Mm.
it's like it's just crazy how car centric the communities can be.
Yeah.
Anyways, switching gear. The next thing
Well, so
is,
that was your full rant on the villages, or
that
did you
was the
have more?
village. That
Oh,
was the
okay.
village. Anytime
All
I
right.
could talk about a golf cart community, it really excites me.
Okay. Oh, so your rant was more about West Hartford not allowing you to do your golf
Well,
cart.
no, the villages were interesting because for
Oh,
some
okay.
reason they keep coming up, and I don't know what's that science called, where like if you think of something or whatever, like
Mm.
all of a sudden you start seeing it more.
Yeah, right. It's
And I don't know why, but I keep seeing like content or context where the village keeps kind of cropping up, and I
because you
think
turned 40, so they're pushing the retirement stuff on you.
I think those who know about the villages,
Yeah.
but I think that like a large swath of America doesn't know about the village.
Well,
That
what's funny is that as it always gets a reaction, like you said, either you know or you don't know. So it's either like, oh, my mother-in-law is down in the villages, then it's, oh, what's that? or it's, oh boy. It's one of those two things. It's never like a neutral reaction. It's either I've never heard of
Exactly.
it, or, oh yeah, I know all about that place.
Yeah, exactly. Which is so funny. It's so funny. Anyways, I was gonna rant on Disney, but I don't think I need to go there.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think we've probably done that before and
You guys
covered
probably
it, but
have.
it's a check the box item. It's something you should go to. If you got kids, you want to maybe take them when they're a little younger, a little, like, I don't know, 8,
Yeah.
9, 10, somewhere in that range. And then if they want to go back as a teen, check the box. But other than that, that's kind of
Yeah.
it.
All I'm saying is Magic Kingdom benches. I mean, come on.
Mm. Yeah. And the food is horrific,
Yeah,
which
food's
is,
horrible. I mean, when I got there for the first time with the kids, I'm like, okay, this is cool. We're putzing around, slow walking, and then I'm like, all right, well, let's just take a seat for a moment. Like, let's plan our approach here.
mm,
I'm looking around and like, not there's nowhere to sit. And I'm
yeah.
like, how can the Magic Kingdom not have a park bench? How can the Magic Kingdom be hostile to sitting?
Yeah, there's some strange things there. Yeah, don't even think about buying gum anywhere near that place. Not sold on premise, not even sold like at the gas stations around there. So
Yeah. Oh, and the selfie sticks. Did you know there's a prohibition on selfie sticks?
I didn't know that. I'm not surprised. I'm
Yeah.
okay with that though, because that could get a little bit dicey.
I don't know. I don't know.
When you get a crowd that big and somebody's going to lose their phone, drop it, and so stepped on it, and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I don't think the government needs to protect us of losing a
No,
cell
I'm
phone.
not talking about the government, but
Well,
if
I mean, they are the effective government, aren't they?
well, they are there, but it's still their private. Well, that's the whole show thing, but yeah.
Mm,
If you want to ban selfie sticks at your business, I wouldn't have a problem with that.
I suppose. All right. So what's going on in
Well,
the?
so the thing that caught me yesterday a little bit was the broadband internet access. Did you follow that? That was the big announcement yesterday from Biden Harris of their. And let me pull up the numbers because I don't want to.
pull it up.
I don't want to ruin this too much here. So it was an announcement yesterday that got some press, but obviously they were more interested in trying to get to Biden to talk about the Russia situation over the weekend and the Wagner Group and all that.
Right. Right.
Which itself is a fascinating story. Probably not something we really need to cover on here, but that's crazy how
With
all that went down.
the Russian coup.
Yeah. This guy gets his whole, private military together to head to Moscow, and then halfway there is like, nah, I'm all set. I'm going home.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that dynamic is. We could. I mean, we could talk on it. I mean, who cares? We're not going to alienate anybody in our audience, I'm sure. I mean, the notion that a world power contracts a private army is kind of bizarre unto itself, anyways, right?
Right. Yeah, I think that is pretty wild. They've got of course I get a pop-up ad here, but yeah, I mean the fact that they've got the private military group that's fighting with them in Ukraine and getting all this press. And it sounds like this guy that heads that got a little too big for his britches and wanted to talk to some military leaders, and they didn't want to talk to him, and he said, fine, we're going on Moscow. But he had to know that if it didn't go well, that he'd be, we'll see how long he lasts,
Well,
but he's in exile. He lost his group. They're going to be assimilated into the regular military.
are they going to be assimilated, or did they disband? I mean, I'm sure they want
Well,
to be
I think they need the fighters. So I think they're good fighters. So I think they need all the help they can get. So I don't
So
think it
they
makes
did.
sense.
So they put. So I know he's going to Belarus, but did he lose? Did he? Uh, Not withdrawal, but did he? What's the term I'm looking for? Did he gave up his army basically?
I don't think it was his choice. It's been disbanded by the Kremlin, and they're gonna assume control of it and whatever, and he's not in charge of it anymore. So,
okay. I thought he was taking his 30,000 strong to Belarus.
nope, just him. Pretty sure it's just him.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be taking a swan dive through a window within the next 12 months for sure.
You would think so. He's gonna
I
take
mean,
a
unless
bite
this
of
was all theater, right? I mean, there's a big part of that this
yeah,
could have
there
been theater, right?
possibility to create a distraction, a diversion from something.
Right. Or yeah, I mean, if your enemy thinks you're weak, does that make you strong? You know
Well,
what I mean?
that was the big some of the stuff I was listening to this morning, and the jury's still out on that. Does this strengthen Putin or weaken him? Does it the case for strengthening would be that somebody came after him, got scared, turned around, and went home. The case for weakening him would be that there's dissent in the ranks, and if somebody else tries this, could they be more successful with it, or who knows? And
Yeah,
then,
I
of
mean
course,
that
there's the outsider's perspective, which is the enemy type of thing. Okay, great. If Putin's not there, who's next? Who's next man up, and could they be more difficult to deal with than Putin is?
right. I mean, is there a column of policy change waiting sitting underneath Putin, or is it just going to be one dictator out and another one comes in, right?
Right. Yeah. So, anyways, I wanted to talk about this internet deal. So this was yesterday. So high-speed internet is a necessity. President Biden pledging all U.S. household will have access by 2030. So we got a 7-year time frame. So he's putting 40 billion behind this, and they've actually put out the numbers as to what each state is getting and what each state's need. So some of the chatter is, well, okay, high speed, that sounds great, but what exactly what is the definition of that? And have
Did they
we,
define it?
I don't believe that they did. Here it says, download is download speeds of 20 megabits it says megabits per second, and upload speeds of 3,
So
which I
that's what.
don't, think that anybody would consider that crazy fast, but
Well, that would
um,
give you one HD stream.
yeah. Uh, Funding is 1 billion for 19 states, with the remaining states falling below the threshold. Allotments range from 100 million for DC area to 3.3 billion for Texas.
36,000 projects are already funded or underway to lay cable that provides internet access. Some of those are from 25 billion in initial funding. High-speed internet isn't luxury anymore. More than 7% of the country falls in underserved category. This is crazy.
So what I wanted to get to was the number of people. I don't know if this article says, I can find one
What
where
is
it
the
says it, but
criteria though? That is crazy.
basically about 8% of the population in the country does not have access to it, obviously. So it's, fairly rural
Right.
type stuff. But when you do the math on how many people don't have access, and the idea of spending 42 billion on it, comes out to about 5,000 a person. So I don't know how closely you followed Starlink and similar technologies, but that was my
Very
first
closely.
when I did the math, and I'm thinking, geez, we're going to spend $5,000 a person to get internet access. And I'm not saying that is um, by any means expensive or not. I mean, listen, if somebody's, miles away from the next person, and you got to dig trenches or run wires all the way to their house, I'm not saying that you could do that cheaper, but it seems like you're throwing a lot of money at a problem that's likely going to be solved in a cheaper way. If your goal is 2030, I mean, geez, 2030, what's internet access going to look like 7 years from now? And do we need to spend 42 billion on it? Could we not get these people Starlink stuff? So I'll leave that there for you. What are your thoughts on this whole project and the
I have
spending?
a lot to say on this.
All right, let's do it.
Oh my God. This is really, I don't know if I'm like boiling over this or just a guffaw. You know what I mean? Like I'm just like, you just made the point, You just made the point with data, and which is exactly what I'm feeling on this. I mean, what's the head count? I mean, what are what's the head count that's going to be the effective
So the
population?
new so I pulled up another article here from Reuters. The administration estimates that some 8.5 million locations in the U.S. lack
Eight and a half,
access.
8.5 million people, which
Yep.
accounts to there's
So, and we're
330
spending
million
42 billion. So it's about $5,000 per location.
per location. 5,000. Yeah, but I've had friends. I mean, growing up in Simsbury, I've had friends that lived off of the main road, and I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah. My
their
mother
parents
and yeah.
saying it would cost. I remember hearing friends say it would cost, because 30 years ago, 30 years ago, a friend of mine crashed into a telephone pole, and her mom was pissed and screaming around the house because she had to buy an $8,000 telephone pole. I mean, apparently that 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it cost $8,000 to install a telephone pole. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, and then if you live off, I remember my best friend growing up, he was off the road, and you can imagine he was probably like two telephone poles off the main road, and they didn't have cable growing up because the cable company said it was going to cost about 8 grand or so, or 10
right.
grand to get cable to the house. And that was 25 years ago, you know?
Mhm.
Um, this is, oh God, this is one of those situations where, and I want to say Democrats because they're like the liberal spend anything group but really, like, Republicans are just, they don't have a recent track record either. So it's really government at large, if you ask me. Just an example of like horrible spending, horrible policies. A tr- I dare say, you've heard the expression transfer of wealth, or is a transfer of wealth. The government takes in from everybody, and then like
Sure.
redistribution of wealth. I mean, this is exactly one of those scenarios where it's like trample on the many to serve the few under the guise of some supposed human right. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
broadband internet is not a human right, and I'm sensitive to underserved communities. I really am. I really,
Mhm.
really am. But the
Now,
moral
yeah.
hazard, huh?
Yeah, and I would jump in for a second there and say this is one area where the government does have some responsibility there, because at this point it's not a right, as you said, but it is somewhere where the government does need to step in, and very much like electricity or phones or quality access to police coverage or fire coverage. You do have to cover, and it is at that point where you essentially can't live without this kind of stuff. You can make the case for libraries or all that kind of stuff, and I get that. So I do think this is an area where the government needs to step up, but some of that could just be, they do regulate utilities. They are regulating these companies to some extent, since they do have monopolies in this area. They can say, hey, you know what, you're making enough money in Southington and West Hartford, where the houses are closer together. So what if you've got to spend 20 grand to get this rural house? Go get it done. Why not just do that?
I
And
would be more in favor of that. I would be more in favor of that, because you're right. The government does issue effectively regional monopolies
Mhm.
to operators. So
Right.
if you're going to issue, and I thought that there were the broadband, there was some broadband act that was issued like 15, 20 years ago. I think it was a result of it was Ma Bell was disbanded in what, the 70s, 80s, and then they started reconsolidating again. So it
Mhm.
was one of the major mergers, AT&T buying some 3Com, or to tell something, I don't know, but they in order for one of the big phone companies to acquire another big phone company again, there was something to the effect that broadband had to be brought out to rural and underserved communities, and like there was a report issued on that, and it was like abysmal what they did.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
I just
so I
pulled
would
up
be,
this just for, and I hate making these kind of broad, like, assumptions and comparisons because it's not really apples to apples. But so the government that's spending $42 billion on this program of our money, taxpayer money, who are already overpaying probably for our internet and cable and all that stuff. What do you think Comcast's profits were last year? 44 billion.
for the
you know
year.
yeah, and again, that's obviously Comcast is in a million other businesses, and there's a ton of
Yeah.
other cable companies or whatever, but that's our, one of our local providers, Xfinity or whatever. But so it isn't like there isn't fluff in some of these in some
And
of these companies.
this is exactly one of those things where lifetime politicians have crony capitalism. So Biden is already obviously an opponent to Elon Musk and his enterprises, right?
Mhm.
So how much money did the cable company and the phone company industry donate to Biden, for example, right? That would bring into question, like, how much did they donate to Biden's campaigns over the last 20 years or whatever, right? Because they are the only ones who are going to benefit from this. This is a subsidy from the government that you and I are talking, like, make the telcos pay for it out of their profits, right? Out of their 44 billion. No, the government's going to pay for it, which is a subsidy to those telcos, right? And then it does the added benefit of usurping or undermining the billions that Elon Musk is spending to put low Earth orbit satellites in above the Earth to bring high speed broadband to underserved and rural communities. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I mean, Elon is emotional in his own right, but if I were Elon, I'd be like, this is just it's
Yeah.
like it's like Atlas Shrugged. You ever seen Atlas Shrugged, or
Sure.
have you ever read the book?
Yeah.
This is like the producers looking and going like, what are you guys like? What are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
I mean, the guy invented self-landing rockets so that he could reduce the cost to space, so that he could put broadband satellite in place to service, all of these far-reaching places that wires are impractical. And then it's so funny. I mean, it's not bad to get a wire to every house in America, right? Like, that concept is not a bad concept, but
Right.
it's just, what are the motives? You know what I mean? And what are the execution of it? It's so messed up.
Yeah, I mean, as a taxpayer, I'm saying, and for those watching on video, we pulled up a Starlink availability map here, and it's really odd that they used all blues. I can't imagine that's so. You've got what's available, what's wait list, and coming soon. This is essentially the whole majority of the country here is available, right? Unless
Holy
I'm
cow! Look
reading
at the
this.
whole continent, though.
And then this is, and when you mouse over most of what's on waiting list, it says expanding 2023, and everything else is, a
Wow.
lot of. So they said the majority of the money is going into Texas. It looks like, I would say, over half of Texas is available now, and the cities that are not available through Starlink. I mean, the eastern part of the state is not available through Starlink, but that's Dallas, Houston. That's likely already covered by broadband services anyway.
Right.
So, um, so when you look at
I wonder what the explanation for that little pocket was over in New
yeah,
Mexico. Did you see that?
I don't know. Yeah, let me go back to that. This New
What?
Mexico.
What?
Oh, maybe that's it. Is that Area 51?
I don't know. What mouse over it? What does it say?
Nothing.
Oh, that's bizarre. Is that you think that's a government installation?
I don't know. We'd have to look at that.
I wonder if they overlay that. What is that
Well,
zone?
it could be. Well, I don't know. I was going to say maybe it's like national park area or something,
Yeah, but why would
but that
they?
wouldn't really matter anyway.
It's
But
bizarre.
yeah, there's another
Um,
little.
Look at the whole continent, though. That's fascinating. Yeah, there's another one
Right.
right there. I wonder why they blacked that out. What is that? Virginia? Oh, is that Camp David?
Coming soon. Yeah. We got a little pocket here. Geez, you're not even cut. Oh no, that's not quite you, but that
Is
might
that the
be.
sound?
No, I mean that's.
The
Oh
Long
yeah,
Island
I guess it is. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I thought this was a sound. Yeah, a little bit in
Long
the
Island
water
Sound?
there.
But, I
But
mean, it's unlikely that if you're covered on both sides of the sound that they're blocking you out there.
yeah, I was looking for.
I don't know why I'm so irritated by this. I mean, I
Yeah,
do.
I knew that would get you fired up. The first thing I did yesterday was when I read the article is just did the math. I'm like, all right, 42 billion, 8 million people without it, 5 grand a piece. And then I was like, all right, well, what does Starlink cost? What is this?
Starlink's like $100 a month. I mean, it's
Yeah, and you gotta buy the satellite deal.
people were complaining
Um,
about the $500 satellite, but I mean, come on, like that get
yeah, it's better than nothing.
better than nothing. I mean, if you ask me, that's worth 4 times the amount to a rural house that just has no chance of broadband.
Oh
If
yeah,
you
and
ask me,
you're paying and we as taxpayers are going to spend 5 grand a person, 5 grand a household on this, right? 42
yeah.
billion.
I
So
wonder. I wonder if this money will subsidize the dish, for example. I mean, I wonder if the government
uh,
will like just wake up and be like, we can get them the dish and save the money. I will say that like I am a proponent of competition. Competition is so vital for a healthy economy. So
mhm.
Elon was that whole map that you just had on screen on the western half, the half and western side of the country, which we all know is the most rural space in America,
Yeah,
or
it's
in the
covered.
yeah, it's covered. So Elon does have an effective monopoly on that space. Um, but just the waste attributable to dragging a wire to, I mean, you can't even picture. I mean, sitting in my neighborhood, you just can't imagine like some of these installations. And then the other thing is like a lot of these houses, like my friend growing up, my in-laws, when my son's grandparents, they have like a mansion that's like off the beaten path, but and they didn't have broadband 20 years or 15 years ago when we were together. But you're like, like there's a lot of wealthy people that are going to benefit from this.
Oh, I know. Right. Yeah, that's part of what yeah, that's funny. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it's just not. It's not just. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird that those two things kind of get lumped together. They talk about, rural and this and that, and then they go right into, well, this will help, people escape poverty. And it's like, well, why do you automatically make the connection to rural as being poor? And obviously in some instances there's overlap, but sometimes people are rural out of, you know, choice.
Choice.
They choose to be there, and it's their second home and third home and
Like
fourth home,
is
you
Kevin
know?
Costner's Yellowstone Ranch going to get broadband now?
Yeah, I mean, I think
You know what I'm
about
talking about?
yeah, well, and I think about large part of the Adirondacks. I mean, there's no cell service, there's not great internet, but sometimes that's a good thing. It's um, but
Yeah.
yeah, so that whole
And
thing
is
is
this going to age well? You know what I mean? In 10 years when we look back, is
no,
this going to age well? Are we like, and I'm
we'll forget
sensitive to the
about it.
fact that I might be like, I might be arguing like against seatbelt laws, from the 30s or 40s. You know what I mean? And then
I don't
like
think so. Yeah, have you seen that? That was a funny TikTok that for what was going around a few weeks ago. There was a couple of them. There was that was like a local news broadcast of people
yeah.
opposed to the seatbelt laws or something like that. And there was some
Yeah.
small town that
Yeah.
instituted a seatbelt law, and there was some guy like, "Well, this is going to hurt businesses because people that don't want to wear seatbelts are going to drive around our town, or they're not going to come through it for risk of being
I mean,
fined."
pretty soon they won't let you have a beer on your way home from work. You know what I
Well,
mean?
that was the other one too that was going around. The guy was like, "I work hard at my job all day. If I want to crack open a drink on the way home, the government shouldn't tell me to, what to
I
do."
think it was a woman with a toddler in her front seat, wasn't it?
Oh, I didn't see that one.
I
Yeah,
think so.
toddler on their lap, right?
Yeah.
I know. No, I think
Oh,
this is the opposite. I think I mean, this is just, It's just such a waste here. What is the?
Government's got to be government.
I mean, it's one. It's just. I don't know. I would have loved to see a little bit. It seemed like it got coverage, but it was like basically just the press release type coverage. I read all the stories and they were all the same. There didn't seem to be a lot of. I even went down the rabbit hole of Twitter, which I don't usually do, because I was like,
Yeah.
"Where's like? Shouldn't there be a little bit more outrage about this? Shouldn't there be a little bit more like, what are we doing here? Are we, are we?"
Can we really get into a rat hole? So like it's this kind of policy choices that
Mhm.
the way that the government will fund this is not immediately by raising taxes, but they will go to the Federal Reserve and borrow more money, which the practical effect of that is print more dollar bills.
Mhm.
They will print more dollar bills, and every time the Federal Reserve prints another dollar bill without taking one out of the supply, it makes every
Mhm.
dollar bill in yours and my pocket less valuable. So that's called inflation.
Yeah.
And this country just does not seem to universally understand how that works. And it is not debatable. I know people will debate it and politicians will wordplay it and people will try to deflect and say the economy is so complex, we can't possibly see what the silver bullet or the single
Mm.
problem is. But no, when the federal government doesn't tax you and it spends money, it's borrowing it from the one place that has the legal authority to counterfeit our money, which is the Federal Reserve. And that's called, what do they call that? They call that quantitative easing. When did that word first
Well,
get
quantitative easing is more about like buying bonds back, and um, that you started to hear that like around the financial crisis,
right?
2008, 2009. But it's funny when you look at that like as an investment advisor, seeing both sides of it. So what the government borrows money via their issue of treasury bonds, and when you buy a treasury bond, you're loaning money to the government, and so I had a client put some money away last week from the sale of a house. So I'm going in and I'm, you know, buying bonds. I'm buying some short-term treasuries because, jokes aside about the US government and debt ceiling and all that, a US Treasury bond is still, the most secure asset on the planet. It just is. So you're like, you're getting returns now on those treasuries, which we hadn't really had in 15 years. Nobody was buying treasury. Well, people were buying treasuries, but I mean, from an investment standpoint, a lot of advisors weren't going in and buying treasuries because the interest rates were so low. Why would I buy treasuries and get almost zero? But now you're going out 6 months and buying treasuries, that mature at the end of the year, and the interest rates, 5.4, 5.5, and it's like, oh, we're starting to get some interest. This is good from a client perspective because suddenly you had all these people that were living on this, old people live on that fixed income. They had this idea that when they were going to retire, they'd just live off the interest, and they haven't been able to do that. Now they kind of can get back to that, but at the same time, that's money that the government is borrowing from these folks and now having to pay a higher interest rate on it. So it's funny, like as an advisor listening to both sides of that, like it's good that that the government is paying interest because they're paying it essentially to some of my clients, but at the same time, we as taxpayers and stuff are borrowing this money and whatever. It's just kind of an interesting headspace to be in sometimes.
Yeah.
There is a cost to this borrowing, and the borrowing costs are significant. We've been very lucky to basically borrow at zero for the last 15 years, and now we're borrowing at not zero. And no different than the people that were getting mortgages at 2-3%. Now it's 6-7. Credit cards and all that stuff. Once the interest rates go up, it hampers your ability to do things. So
Mhm.
that's now happening at the largest level. But so anyway, if you were curious about Connecticut, we will be getting allocations by state or territory. We'll be getting
How much of our money will we be getting back?
$144 million. $144,180,792.71 is our allocation. $144 million Secretary of Commerce, his quote was, "This is a watershed moment for millions of people across the country who lack access to high-speed internet connection, who will soon have this necessary service to learn, work, and play. States can now plan their grant programs with confidence and engage that their communities will ensure they spend this money where it is most needed."
And again, just to renew my position on this, the carriers and service providers that have effective monopolies on entire districts could have just as well been mandated to drag their copper out to every house in the community on their own dime. So I think that's the position I'm going to take on that one.
So there actually is a national coverage map, which we could have taken this and overlaid the Starlink map. I don't know how to get rid of this thing here. Let me, I'm going to put in any of our personal addresses
Main
here.
Street, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'll just put in, let's see if it just lets me zoom out all the way. Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty cool resource, though. Look at that. I haven't looked at that in years. So blue is covered?
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah. So what really are we looking at here as far
It's
as
the density, though? If you zoom in on like where your address was, there was
I'm gonna
not. There
take
was.
in. All right, so that's
There it is.
well,
Yeah.
let's take a look at Connecticut. Let's zoom in here.
It's gonna be like Durham, Litchfield.
So yeah, so there's some pockets here. Looks like that. A little is it a hexagon?
Right.
So there's not a huge. Boy, wouldn't you love to get a population run on these? I'm sure we could do it, but if we're spending $134 million, I mean, how many households are in these pockets? I mean, you might be looking at Connecticut spending 30 or 40 grand a person, a household on this stuff, right?
Right.
Oh, we could totally get like population runs on these and stuff. It'd be crazy.
When you say population run, what do you mean?
Well, just figuring out. So if we, zoom in and see who doesn't like, if you like we were doing the math on the national level, $42 billion for 8 million households without access, it's about 5,000 a person. But if you took Connecticut and said, all right, how many people don't have access in Connecticut? And then look at the 131 million that's being spent on it. Interesting stuff.
That's good. I'm glad you brought that up. That got us a show today.
Yeah, that's crazy how we're 42 minutes in on this stuff. But yeah, we touched on that. So good content-wise, you got anything coming up for the summer? Anything you're working on there?
No. So, well, let's just clean up what last week's show was. We were going to go down to there's a C Hub initiative, some cyber hub initiative that the state's launching down in Stanford. You and I were contemplating going down. I ultimately did not think that it was going to be worth my time. I think it's more geared towards HR and hiring and, enterprises. So I don't know. And plus it looked real special interest to me. Or, so I don't know if I don't know. I don't want to poo-poo it, but I'm kind of poo-pooing it, I guess. So that's why I mean, the train ride down to Stanford would have been fun, but I've got plenty of other things I can do with my time right now. And one of those things that I'm doing is I'm studying a lot and just kind of boning up on security frameworks, cybersecurity frameworks and things. I don't know if I told you, but I'm studying to get this certification here. Did I tell you that?
Oh no, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, so I'm studying right now for this certification, the CISSP. Here's the kind of study guide, one of the 2 study guides. But this certification from this organization, this is basically like a mastery level. This is a CIO level certification. It's dense. It's really dense. And as a result, I've been studying kind of and I was knowledgeable of these themes, but maybe it's just superficially or a little more than superficially. So I'm kind of doing a deep dive. So here's another. This is another standard called COBIT, and that's an update. And then here's another book I got yesterday, building a HIPAA compliant cybersecurity program. And this talks about NIST, the NIST 800 standard, or the cybersecurity framework from NIST, which is this came about in 2013. So I remember when it was announced, and it was new, and I'm not an early adopter, so I didn't really pay much attention to it. But it seems like it's matured quite a bit. A number of these standards, as you can see, this COBIT standard is 2000. This is the 2019 variant. The other one was, I think, 2005 or something like that. So that's what I've been going. That's what I've been working on, at least professionally. So that's I don't know what my point was.
I don't know, but that's we're just talking about content for over the summer, so that's good.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
keep you posted on that.
Yeah, so I'll be producing some content related to that for sure, and I'm starting to trickle it out a little bit. If you saw my a couple LinkedIn posts over the last couple of days.
Yeah, and it's still a very hot topic, certainly in the advisor community as well, as far as cybersecurity requirements and all that kind of stuff. And the regulatory bodies are coming out with stuff, but as usual, they're going to be a little bit behind.
Yeah, there's a number. I mean, the high value industries, the healthcare industries, has been, their hand has been forced by the regulators since '95. I think HIPAA came out in 1995, and then was touched up in 2013, 2012, something like that, when High Trust came out, or High Tech rather, the High Tech Act, and the CPA firms, the AIC CPA has, this is it the SOC standard, and I think PCI DSS. That might be an independent body, but I'm still seeing some industries not being regulated, or their industry associations are kind of light on their cybersecurity.
Why do you think that is? Is it because things are changing so quickly, or because it takes long to get this stuff out? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so we support the legal industry. That's one of our biggest markets that we service, and they're not really regulated. The American Bar Association has practice rules that they abide by, and the American Bar Association's practice rules are really light on cybersecurity expectations and standards. And I don't know. Attorneys are often judges and politicians, and I know that there's a high ethical standard that they place on themselves to a certain degree. Not the two attorneys who used open ChatGPT for pleadings. Did you see that?
Yes, I did see that.
Those two attorneys notwithstanding, what's interesting about that news article is they were called on it and they doubled down. So that's why they got really bagged for it. They should have just said yeah, we used a tool, and we made, they could have easily fluffed it and said we used a tool. It was a practical tool, but we just made errors in our review of the content or something. So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be a naysayer, or, but, let's face it, the legal community largely influences regulations, you know what I mean? And that's from their trade professionals going through either the political, becoming politicians, or being judges. So it's the people making our laws are lawyers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they may not be holding them. They may, it's like the politicians trying to vote for term limits, and, trying to get them to vote against insider trading laws. So they can't be, it's why would they vote against their own interests,
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And they would turn around and say, well, we have term limits because you can vote us out, If you don't like, let's vote us out. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's pretty interesting. I'm doing, once we get past the 4th of July here, I got some pretty good stuff coming up. The only one I have specifically scheduled yet is going to be on the July 12th. Doing a session with a third-party administrating firm called 401k in a Box. And we're going to talk about solo 401ks and solo cash balance plans, which is kind of interesting because a lot of people don't know too much about those. And what's happening now is so many people work, side hustles or extra gigs and do this kind of stuff. And what used to happen is people might have their main job and they'd, maybe save part of their paycheck in their big companies 401k, and then their side hustle or whatever might be their spending money or their, vacation money or whatever. But now you actually have people who are doing that second job just for savings, kind of putting that away. And a lot of times if you are, doing that second job, and it doesn't have to be something crazy, even if you're doing, stuff on Etsy or DoorDash or whatever, and you want to put together a retirement plan around that, it might actually be more cost effective and more efficient for you to save your side hustle money. And then depending on what company you work for, maybe that 401k is not that great. So you have the ability to kind of design something yourself that's small and inefficient. And you don't even have to, max it out. You don't have to do all that kind of stuff. But in a lot of instances, it might make sense for you to set up something on your own, rather than do something through your company. So we're seeing a lot of that shift lately. So we're going to talk about the solo 401ks and some of the opportunities there for the self-employed or the partial self-employed. In big picture, we could probably get into this topic at another time too, but the idea that eventually we may move to a workforce where people don't just work for one company, and maybe we're kind of getting there now already, but basically where everybody's sort of an independent contractor and floating around and working for 2 or 3 different people at different times, different locations, all that kind of stuff. So flexibility in sort of retirement accounts and stuff, I think is
Why isn't the government just start a retirement plan for us?
Well, they have Social Security, which is, I don't want to, a lot of people don't like Social Security, but it's helped a
That was
lot of
tongue in
people.
cheek. That was rhetorical.
No, but I mean, that is a big topic that's out there. And there's been some some proposed legislation that does that. And on the surface, it's not a terrible idea, even though that's the business that I'm in. But you have the TSP, which is the government savings program, which works okay. So for federal government workers, so there is some push to say, well, why don't we just make this available to everybody, and why don't we just basically have kind of a universal 401k that every business can adopt into. And you're seeing that on a lower level with the states, which I've talked about probably way too much on here, but anyway, so that's a piece of content that we're doing on the 12th. I think we're gonna have some other stuff coming up too, which well, and that we'll get into that as it comes up. But
Good.
Summer is a good time to record content, so people are around and doing stuff.
Well, the marketing team, I'm sure, they have all sorts of cards up their sleeves. So I'm not sure what I just got a weekly report on it that I got to review, but I think there's a content calendar that we've got coming out. So
nice. Good
all right,
stuff.
let's wrap it for the day. We'll pull it a little early.
All right, sounds good. I'm Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting, Connecticut-based investment advisory firm working with individuals and small businesses to put together their retirement programs. And you can find us at northshireconsulting.com. Social media stuff, 401k and beyond, where we have some interviews with some authors, some industry folks, all that kind of stuff. So look for us there.
I'm Eric Bjorndorf, CEO of Evernet Consulting, a Connecticut-based IT and managed service provider. We service professional businesses and enterprise all over the country with their IT and risk assessment and everything required for cybersecurity programs. You can find me at evernetco.com, schedule a discovery call right from there. And our social is at evernetco. on all the big social networks. And we record every week on Tuesdays. And this is Finance and Technology Insights. We do have a Facebook page, YouTube channel, and Brian puts this audio on your favorite podcast app. So find us wherever you are. Have a good week.